Whew. Hey, how are you? Uh, I I noticed how I left my window open last night because it gets so hot in here from the heat that they pump up here. I have to leave the window open, but it's interesting how I noticed I had to actually leave the window open and I had to leave my fan on in order for me to actually be able to sleep. But what I found to be interesting is that uh, it's cooler out and I can feel it. I can just obviously a breeze. But also, since it's one of those days where I can actually walk around. I can walk around the apartment like no problem. It's so hot in here. I could just walk around just in my underpants if I choose to. But I noticed I believe it was the first week of April. We didn't have any heat for 5 days. We didn't have heat for 5 days. And I found it very odd because I noticed that the heat went off or there was no heat on Sunday. And that stretched on. I was hoping after maybe the first or second day that it would kick in. But it got so cold in here in my apartment to to the point that I had to close the bathroom door because I felt as though there was all the cold air was going there. And that's another thing. I realized I had to also close my bedroom door because it was really drafty in the bedroom. And in there, I was in the living room. I was watching TV because it was midday, and this was during the stay-at-home orders that we were given, just because of the pandemic. Um, I'm there midday, and it's maybe 12, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was cold in the living room. It was so cold I could see my own breath. And then I realized, you know what? I gotta break out my space heaters. Yeah, I I had space heaters that were sitting around that I was gonna give to a friend because it gets so hot in here. I don't need them. Well, I'm so fortunate I didn't give them to him. And I hung on to them. So I broke out my space heaters and I set one up in the living room, set one up in the bedroom. So that way, when I go time for me to go to either room, I just put the heater on before, if I go to bed, put the heater on. But for 5 days, we didn't have heat. And I found it very interesting that they did this during the shutdown that happened. So they, in their mind, probably thought well, people aren't going to be able to pay rent, so why should we give a fuck? Basically that's what I think their logic was. Um, and it was off for 5 days. So I don't know what had happened because it surely wasn't the water heater. The water heater didn't get broke because I could still get hot water. I could take a shower. Um, it was basically the heat had been turned off. So I don't know if someone complained to an office or some authority, um, but it came back on. I think maybe Friday afternoon, I believe. Mysteriously just came on, and that's the thing. The interesting thing was when it was off. It was off throughout the entire building. It wasn't just my apartment. It was the entire building because you wanna know why? I went downstairs and there's a radiator downstairs in the lobby. I touched the radiator. The radiator was just cold, cold as ice. So I think they thought in their mindset, oh well, we're just gonna leave the heat off and see how long we can keep the heat off because they figure well, they're not gonna get paid this month because well, nobody's able to go to work, so therefore there's not many people are gonna be able to pay their rent. So yeah, I think that was their logic right there, and they had the heat off for 5 days, and then it came back on, which I thought was very odd. But just goes to show you that a lot of these landlords, in the tri-state area are very shady, very, very shady, very shady. And that's the thing. I think they thought in their mind oh well, there's no offices that are open, so who's going to complain? To what? What office? All the non-essential workers in whatever departments aren't there, so who's going to complain? So But I found that very, that was one of the things of like, nah, y'all ain't gonna do this in here, nah, nah. But yeah, I was just like, nah, that was some shady shit, shady stuff they did to us. No, no notification of the heat being off or anything. It just was like it's off, and people have children in this building, so what you gonna do, man?